Hey, Stretch, what's up? Did you know in the 1920s for fun, people would sit on flagpoles? It was the cat's meow. It was the entertainment of the day to look up on that tall, tall flagpole and see a man sitting there. Or a woman, and maybe she had a bike. Here's some footage I found of one in action. The goal was to see how long you could stay up there. In 1929, a 14-year-old boy named William Rupert stayed on this flagpole for 23 days, and that's without coming down, folks. The most famous pole sitter was Alvin "Shipwreck" Kelly. In 1929, in Atlantic City, New Jersey, he stayed up on a flagpole for 49 days. Here's good old Shipwreck showing you that he's not afraid of heights. This fun-loving couple got married on top of a pole. Well, I see old Shipwreck is reading his newspaper. I guess it's about time for us to read a newspaper together. We will be reading the Seattle Post-Intelligencer, dated May 10th, 1927. Atlantic flyers still missing. Nungesser and his companion in courage, Francis Coley, driving their Whitebird across the ocean, are men of courage, worthy of the French blood, which they shed willingly in the war. Charles Nungesser is well described as a patchwork of bone and flesh and metal. Wounded 17 times in the war, his body is fastened together in several places with metal joints. Both elbows are patched with platinum. A disc of aluminum covers a hole in the top of his skull. His right ankle is more than half platinum, and there are 4 platinum patches in his legs. His fellow flyer, Captain Coley, wears a black patch over his right eye. A German machine gun bullet destroyed that eye during an air duel. You may not even know the fate of these men when you read this. Successful or not, they are entitled to the immortality that high courage deserves. There are thousands like him in France. Hey folks, when looking up these 2 men, I found that their plane was never found. It is believed they crashed somewhere near Maine. This is a plaque honoring the 2 men in France. There is also this statue in France honoring the 2 pilots. 3 perish when auto overturns. San Francisco, May 9th. 3 young men were instantly killed today when their automobile hit a safety button, skidded 400 feet, and overturned. The driver was Virgil Musculo, driving a car borrowed from his sister. Papers indicate the others were probably F.E. Sprague and Robert Hearn, but identification was not possible. Blimp breaks loose. Ripcord averts crash. Leavenworth, May 9th. The TC-10, number 252, the government's largest type of non-rigid dirigible, broke from its moorings at the Fort Leavenworth flying field this afternoon, while 30 soldiers were attempting to hold down the craft in a 40-mile gale, and collapsed 300 yards away after the ripcord had been pulled. There was no loss of life and little damage to the ship. There was no crash. Major H. Strauss, commandant of Scott's Field, said, "There was only slight damage to the envelope, which can be repaired," he said. Rugged spot on Pacific is setting. Point Conception, the grave of 6 United States naval destroyers, which crashed into the menacing rocks several years ago, was selected by Rupert Julian as his principal location for the filming of the sea scenes of The Yankee Clipper, his latest production for Cecil B. DeMille, now at the Columbia. The waters off the promontory are said to be the roughest on the Pacific coast. As a result, the most realistic storm scenes ever brought to the screen are seen in this picture. Early day cycling. The other day was Cycle Day throughout the well-known nation, and all the youngsters out our way joined in the celebration. I thought of days when sport was real, when onward I went sailing, my seat upon a 6-foot wheel that had a small one trailing. I leaned the thing against a tree, its height was quite appalling, and climbed upon it carefully to keep the works from falling, then pedaled off with a right good will over paths flanked with clover, then struck a rock and took a spill and had to start all over. That cycle path I well recall. What romance lurked around it. Each day upon my rambler tall, I sought a thrill and found it. I swan-dived o'er the handlebars, or saved myself by leaping, and thereupon saw pretty stars and heard the birdies cheeping. I'd pedal down the street, a knight could not be bolder, and fascinate some maiden sweet, with rapture I'd behold her. Then reaching up, my cap to doff, and honeyed words to utter, I'd lose my balance, tumble off, and skid toward the gutter. Ah, how the hills I used to coast upon my cycle chummy, although at that I coasted most the distance on my tummy. That cycle proved my youthful guide and taught me to be humble. It proved to me that foolish pride is bound to take a tumble. Pastor's pup, gum chewer. Hamilton, May 9th. Some of the boys and girls of Hamilton chew their way to Sunday school, but being decorous youngsters, they discreetly park their gum under the seats when called upon to recite the lesson. Punk, the pastor's black and white fox terrier, has learned to look for these abandoned wads. Whenever he follows some member of the pastor's family into the church, he dashes eagerly about under the seats until he finds a toothsome morsel. A Berlin professor makes the alarming announcement that there will be standing room only on Earth in the year 2227. Oh well, in the meantime, we can practice for it by riding on Cohen Park cars at 5:30 p.m. And hostesses should look forward to the time when there's standing room only on Earth. Think of the relief from the harassing fear that some guests will sit on an antique chair. Here's some sports news. Lou Gehrig. Lou is one of the reasons the Yankees are leading the junior circuit. Whether he can keep up his home run hitting is a question. Babe would like an answer to that one himself. Wouldn't it be strange if it was Lou and not Babe asking for 100,000 2 years from now? Famous troublemakers. Cornucopia C. Vanilla, inventor of the ice cream cone, we're now so full of ice cream cones, we're gradually becoming a race of frozen people. When a mother wants to put her little boy to bed at night, she has to undress him with an ice pick. Well, folks, it's almost time for me to grab my taxi cab and skedaddle out of Seattle. But first, here's one last article about a taxi cab. When a New York taxi driver is untipped, he calls himself skunked. A driver tells me not more than half of his fares tip. They watch the meter, he says, have the correct change, hand it to you, and rush across the sidewalk as though they had stolen something.